Hey there, hi, welcome to the channel. I am Garrett, and in today's video, we are talking about some of the worst mistakes you could make that will ruin your home update, your renovation, any changes you're making. The details matter, and these ones make the difference. Now, the first mistake you could make that I think ruin is, we're using the term loosely. I don't like, and I don't think looks good, I always notice, is shoe molding or quarter round. No, I don't like it. I don't like it because of a few reasons. Number one, this is typically put into place to cover some sort of seam or gap. It creates a finished look on something that's not finished. And it's weird to me because you have baseboards to do that. So you're adding the quarter round or shoe molding onto the baseboards to cover up whatever is happening with the gap of flooring there. It's weird to me. And that is the first thing going through my mind. I see it, I look there and I'm like, ooh, what's going on here? What happened? Now let me explain to you what happens with baseboard and shoe molding and all of this. When your home is built and drywall is put on the wall, or if you have plaster put on the wall, it's a delicate material to an extent, and the bottom of it doesn't always finish perfectly and cleanly with your flooring. Also, there are certain types of flooring, like wood, for example. It has to expand and contract with humidity changes and temperature changes in your home. So the baseboard allows there to be a gap of space between the floors and the walls where the floors can move slightly, where we don't have to see that finish. We put a base or skirting board onto the wall that covers that gap. It makes it look clean without us having to do extensive work. So that gap is already covered. Then that baseboard protects the wall from getting hit, bumped, damaged. Like, you're vacuuming, okay, like you might knock into the baseboard, that's fine. But if you knocked into the drywall, you might make a dent as where the baseboard gets a little scuff on it that you can wipe off. So that's what all of that's already there for. Shoe molding or quarter round typically is put there to protect the baseboard, but the baseboard's already protecting the wall. So why do I need shoe molding to protect the baseboard that's protecting the wall? Like, you see what I mean? It's just a lot there. Another reason people will put shoe molding on is because when they redo their floors, they don't want to take up the baseboard. No, if you're gonna do something, it's worth doing right. It's really not that big of a job to have the baseboards removed and then reinstalled after the flooring is put into place. That's just the way you do it. It just makes everything look so much cleaner. It's like when painters come and then they don't take off the outlet covers and they just paint around the edges of it. It's like, it would have taken you 10 seconds to take that off. Why didn't you and just do the job right the first time? Another mistake you can make when you are doing a renovation or an update is have seams in your countertops. And that can't always be avoided, but you need to do it strategically if you're in the situation where you have to do it. So what do I mean by that? When you are having a solid surface countertop installed in your home, whether it's, the marble or a granite or a quartz, whatever it may be, the slabs are a finite size. They will only fit a certain space. And so you may have to have them cut in a way that will have a seam somewhere. And the seam is essentially the slabs of stone are glued together so that there's not a gap or anything there, but the veining, the pattern on it may not line up perfectly. And there is a question of what do you do in that instance? Like how do we deal with that? Where do you put the seam? There are only two places I find to be acceptable. Number one is at a sink. Typically, if I have to do a seam in a countertop, I'm gonna do it right at the sink, and I may even opt for a farmhouse or apron front sink. That way there's only a seam behind it. It's difficult to find an installer who will actually fabricate the stone and do that for you. They may have to put like a reinforcement on the back side of it, but that putting it right there behind the sink where the faucet is, because remember, an apron front sink doesn't have a piece of countertop in front of it. It's only in the back. You really don't see the seam. It doesn't make a difference. It's like non-noticeable. You're not gonna see or tell it's there. The other thing you can do is put a seam in a corner at a 45-degree angle. You run it from the front of the corner all the way to the back. Depending on the type of stone you're using, that may be your best bet, just because we can either get the veining to line up a little bit better so it's less obvious, or it may even be more obvious to the point where it looks intentional. Those are the things I'm looking for and interested in. However, the big but here is in an island. So many people love an island in their kitchen today. I'm all about it. But some people will have a big island, a giant, huge, oversized island, and they will have to either have a seam put into their stone or select a stone that comes in a large enough slab to fit that island. And that's always something you have to be aware of. And it's something that I look out for when it comes to my clients and renovations that we're doing. We always talk about, where's the seam gonna go in the countertop? Do we think it'll be able to fit in there without a seam, or what does that look like for you? So I always recommend, no matter what sort of renovation you're doing or update to your home, whether it's replacing some furniture, what size rug do you need, or something like a kitchen renovation, be sure you contact a designer like me. You can do that using the link in the description box down below, or going to intro.co/GarrettLeChic. But once again, having a seam in the wrong place in your countertops, it's a mistake. It's something you will notice and have to live with, and it may be something that stands out to you and you may regret doing later. So let's try to avoid it if we can. Another mistake I see, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this one I can't really be that nice about, okay? I don't like it. I don't like it, it doesn't look good. And that is bad, fake flooring materials. Okay. What does all of that mean? Fake flooring materials is what I would consider to be like a wood look tile or a foam marble or a vinyl plank floor. There's nothing inherently wrong with those materials. As a matter of fact, I have conversations with clients about them all the time. However, when they look bad, when they don't look like the real version of it, it really looks bad. And those are big commitments. They're expensive to put in, right? Flooring of any sort, or tiling a shower and bathroom and all of those things. It's not inexpensive. That is not lost on me. So like, for example, I'm always looking at homes that are for sale and unavailable. My husband and I love to look at them. We're real estate investors outside of this. So that's always something we're thinking about. And when I see a home that has that, the first thing I think in my mind is, I have to redo it. And what's that add to the bottom line? It's always something that stands out to me, and it's not something that most people realize, or they'll see a trend and be like, yeah, that's great, or see a little sample and be like, I like that, it's perfect, not realizing that there's this extreme variation in the material that just doesn't look real, or the finish of it doesn't look real, it doesn't look good, the veining in the stone doesn't look good. So what I always suggest to get around this, obviously, you know, work with a designer, you know, pick your finishes and your materials, and then, you know, have a consultation where I can look at them and tell you if it's good or not. But that's beside the point. I always suggest you find a real version of what you want. So if you want that white oak look flooring, and you're like, but you know what, we're not doing white oak, we're gonna do vinyl plank. Find an actual white oak that you like, a sample of, that you think looks good, and then compare that with all of the other materials you're bringing in. So if you're looking for that vinyl plank flooring and you want it to look real, find a real piece of flooring to compare it to. Next, you need to look at all of the pieces you're getting. So if you're doing that vinyl plank, buy a box of it, open it up, and look at the variation in it, because some of the boards might be like, you know, a light white oak natural look, that's great, and then some of them might look a little more gray, and you're like, okay, well, you know, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. Or you may get something where you're like, I want it to be a warm brown tone, and you open it up and yeah, it's a warm brown tone, but then, you know, there's yellow boards in there too. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look real. It doesn't look normal or natural. You want to avoid that. And I want you to take away from this video that I am always looking out for you. I want your home to be beautiful, stunning, functional, durable, all of the things. And that's what we're always talking about here on the channel. As a matter of fact, we post content regularly, all of the time, how to achieve great and beautiful design in your home. So be sure you join us, become a part of our LeChic family by hitting that subscribe button, you see that pesky little red button there, click it, turn it to gray, and join us. And I know you're seeing some great value in this content because you made it this far. That's reason enough alone, but I would also greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Let's talk about one of my favorite things in the world, and that's lighting. If you've been here for a while, you know this about me. I love great lighting in a home because lighting is where you really define your style in the space. But you can go wrong, you can make some major mistakes when it comes to the lighting temperature and placement in your home, even just the style of lighting, that will really impact the usability of each and every space. Now, I always say to you, use warm tone lighting because it's just easier to digest, it's easier to relax in a space that has warm tone lighting in your space, but the temperature of lighting will vary depending on the room you're using it in and the type of light fixture. So a lamp or a chandelier, I want to be very warm. I'm gonna go for a 2700 temperature bulb in those fixtures. But for recessed lighting, I might do 3,000 in a living room. In a kitchen, I might do 3,500 or 4,000. In a bathroom, I might do that 3,500 or 4,000. So I really get that great bright lighting that functions beautifully. But in more relaxing spaces, a dining room, a living room, I'm gonna offer something that's a little bit warmer and a little less overwhelmingly bright because I don't need it in those spaces. I want them to be soft and relaxed. Lighting placement also makes a difference in your home, and also where are you putting outlets in, and where are you putting light switches that coordinate with those outlets. I love a light switch that will turn on an outlet and then I can have lamps on them, and I may even put one switch for 2 or 3 outlets. That way I can flip that one switch, all of the lights come on. I don't have to walk around my house putting on 20 lamps every day because I love a lot of lamps. Like, what can I say? I just like that, and I think everybody else should too. But you really have to think about lighting placement and the type of lighting and where you're putting it. Something else I don't personally love is like a pendant light that hangs down really low. I like lighting to be a little bit higher. I want to be able to stand up and see across the space and not look at a light fixture. So in a kitchen, if there's, you know, a peninsula or something, I'm not going to put really low hanging light fixtures on it just because I don't want to see that. I would rather they be hung a little bit higher to make the ceilings look a little taller and the space look a little more open. Those are all things you have to think about. If you have a dining table there, I don't want a light fixture that extends past the sides of that dining table. I want it to be within the parameters of that. Same thing goes for a coffee table. So those are all things you have to think about. Where is that lighting going? What's the placement of it? How far down does it hang? Another mistake I see all of the time when it comes to a renovation is all about tile edges, because not everybody wants to use natural stone everywhere. Totally get it, totally respect that, love that for you, love it for me, love it for everybody, because natural stone is not for everybody. That's all right. But when it comes to a ceramic or a porcelain tile, the color, the pigment on the front of that tile does not extend through it. So if you cut the tile, the side you cut, you're gonna see the white part of the tile, the inner, the substrate it's made of, right? The actual like porcelain or ceramic. You're going to see that. So what do you do where you have an exposed tile edge, where those tiles are cut? This is something you might see at the edge of a backsplash. It's something you might see in a shower, anywhere that exposed tile edge is going to be. And those are usually the top places you're gonna see them. Most people will put a piece of metal trim there, which is fine. Like a lot of people will just do nothing, or they might like just smudge some grout over the side of it, and that's a little rough for me. I wouldn't do that. But you know, some people will just take a metal trim piece and trim out the edge of that tile, which is fine, and you can do that. The problem for me comes from, what is the metal finish on that trim piece going to be? Does it work with everything else? And is it truly a timeless metal? Because there was a big trend where people were doing like all black and white, right? Like a farmhouse, black and white modern farmhouse. And now we're at a point where the black and white's a little aggressive for some people. They just don't like it. Some people think it's a little dated. There's a timeless way you can do black and white. I'm actually working with a client on a kitchen right now. Gorgeous. We're doing it in black and white. It's going to be stunning. But there's a way not to do it. And when you put these trim pieces in, it's a big commitment. I personally would match the hardware you have going into the rest of the house. Probably, I would honestly do it in a color to match the tile as close as possible, or I might do it in a stainless steel, a brushed nickel look. That way it's easy to digest and see visually, and it doesn't stand out. That's always a timeless finish. However, what I personally would do, what I'm looking to do in a space like that, is contrast it or accent it with a natural stone trim. Because natural stone, you can cut it and you're just gonna see more of the natural stone inside of it. So that's what I'm gonna look to use in those areas where I have an exposed edge. So we don't have those exposed porcelain edges. I may look to do that in a shower and trim it out in that. Or even just take and make a border of a natural stone tile. Like, you know, a white marble subway tile is not super expensive, but it can really enhance a space. You do that in a shower, maybe you do a marble baseboard in the rest of the bathroom, and all of a sudden that porcelain tile looks so much more elevated, so beautiful. It looks like a luxury experience, like a beautiful bathroom in a 5-star hotel, just because we use that little bit. It adds a little bit more to the bottom line, but it adds a lot to the finish quality and the luxury factor. So that's something to think about if you are using a porcelain tile in a bathroom. Just remember, you're going to see an exposed edge. What are we doing about it? How are we covering and hiding that? How can we elevate it and make it something stunning? The next mistake you can make when you're doing a renovation, a home update, changes, it gets me every time, and honestly it's one of the worst mistakes I think you could make when it comes to a renovation, and that is a change in flooring height. I don't like it. I don't like it. If you put a little bit of extra effort into it, you can avoid that. And a lot of contractors will just be like, yeah, no, we can't do it. Oh, it's just gonna be a little lower. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I will notice it, I will see it, I will clock it right away. I will probably trip over it, okay? And most other people will too. I don't like a change in flooring height. And what do I mean by that? It's not like, oh, there's a step here and you have to step down. That's fine, okay? We can make a step obvious. I'm not scared of a step. What I really mean is when you have like a tile floor and then a wood floor next to it where the wood floor is slightly taller. No, I don't like that. Or vice versa, because if you do like an engineered or a vinyl plank, that's a lot thinner than a solid wood floor, so there may be a step down. I see this all of the time when people replace carpet, because carpet is one of the thickest materials you can put on your floor. So home builders will install tile in a bathroom and the tile will be raised, the thickness of it, it'll be put higher, like a lot of mortar underneath it, so that it sits flush with the carpet. But then when you go to replace the carpet with an engineered floor, the engineered floor sits lower. So we have to do something to the subfloor to raise it up so those are all flush. That to me is a big, big, big consideration you have to give. It's something you have to think about, you have to be asking about, you have to budget for when you are doing a renovation, because it stands out, it is obvious, and it's the easiest way to spot a renovation. Because if there's a change in floor height, I instantly know, like, wait a second. Something happened here, like this wasn't originally here, it's probably something else. Or when people, it's like you have those open concept houses where there's tile in the kitchen, but then it goes off at an angle in one direction, and then it's like somebody took up the carpet and put flooring, and so it's like a weird tile situation happening there. That's another giveaway. These are all things I don't want to see, because I want it to be natural feeling and looking. How do we change it? Sometimes we have to pull back a little bit to do something extra. Sometimes we have to raise up that floor a little bit so it sits perfectly flush. These really are all things you have to think about when it comes to a renovation, because we don't want a renovation to stand out as a renovation. We want it to be seamless, timeless, elegant, and beautiful. We need that finished quality to be high in order for it to feel natural and look really elevated and beautiful. Otherwise, it looks like a renovation somebody may have to come in behind you and fix later. Hi Arden. Well, now that we talked about some of these renovation mistakes you can avoid, since you know them, you probably should, be sure you check out this video right over here all about how to decorate your living room like a designer, and I will see you over there.